Let's travel back to Muskegon, Michigan, where Amanda Grace Byers Blackburn was born on July 31st, 1987, to Phil and Robin Byers. Following her birth, her family relocated to Indianapolis, Indiana, where she began her education before eventually moving to Elkhart, Indiana, in 1995. In 2006, Amanda successfully graduated from Elkhart Christian Academy. Amanda's life took a significant turn when she met Davy Blackburn on a blind date at a Christian rock concert. Their connection was immediate. In 2008, Amanda completed her studies at Pensacola Christian College in Pensacola, Florida, earning an associate's degree. That same year, she and Davy exchanged vows. For 4 years, the couple resided in South Carolina, where Davy served as an assistant pastor at New Spring Church. However, in 2012, Amanda and Davy decided to embark on a new chapter in their lives by relocating to Indianapolis. Their aim was to establish an independent church, Resonate Church, on the north side of the city. The year 2014 brought another significant moment as they welcomed their first child, a son named Weston. At this point, it seemed that life was thriving and the couple was content. However, tragedy was lurking nearby. On November 10, 2015, Davy's day began at around 4:30 a.m. He started by reading his Bible and then proceeded to the gym at approximately 6 o'clock a.m. Before leaving, he left the door unlocked since they only had one house key, which happened to be on his wife's key ring. Davy's workout session lasted for about an hour. Upon returning home, he engaged in a phone conversation with a friend. To avoid disturbing his wife and son, he remained in the driveway until after 8 a.m. When he finally entered the house, he was met with a distressing scene. Amanda was lying unconscious and bleeding near the fireplace and Christmas tree. She was unclothed and face down. Davy immediately called 911 for assistance. Fortunately, their 1-year-old child was unharmed and safely in his crib at home. Regrettably, Amanda succumbed to her injuries within 48 hours of the incident. An autopsy confirmed that she had sustained a gunshot wound to her head, leading to her death being classified as a homicide. Adding to the tragedy, it was discovered that Amanda was 12 weeks pregnant at the time of the attack. The authorities attributed the incident to a home invasion, which sparked an intense pursuit of suspects. In late November 2015, the police apprehended 2 individuals, Jalen Watson, 21 years old, and Diana Gordon, 24 years old, in connection with the case. Subsequently, in December 2015, an 18-year-old named Larry Taylor was also taken into custody as a third suspect. The charges brought against them included murder and robbery. However, there was a significant development when Watson and Gordon entered into plea agreements. As part of these agreements, prosecutors agreed to drop several charges, including the murder charge. In addition to pleading guilty, both Watson and Gordon made a commitment to testify against the third suspect, Taylor, during the subsequent bench trial, and they honored this commitment. Their testimonies provided crucial insights into the events that unfolded on the morning of Amanda's tragic shooting. Both men confessed to being involved in 3 burglaries that occurred in the early hours of that day. During one of these burglaries, they stole car keys to a silver Chrysler Sebring. This particular residence had a security system that captured images of the 3 burglars. Following this, they drove the stolen car to an apartment on the northwest side, which happened to be in close proximity to the neighborhood where the Blackburn family lived. Watson and Gordon testified that they proceeded to break into a house adjacent to the Blackburn residence through the back patio room. Inside, they stole televisions, a laptop, a bag of oranges, and even a pink sweater. They also consumed alcoholic beverages that they found in the house. The stolen goods were cleverly concealed by placing the televisions in the trunk of the stolen car, which had been parked in the garage. Shortly after, Taylor informed them that he had witnessed a man leaving the neighboring house. This prompted them to choose that house as their next target for burglary. Unfortunately, it turned out to be Davy's residence. Upon entering the Blackburn house, they stumbled upon a wallet and divided the cash they found among themselves. They also took a credit card. To their surprise, they discovered Amanda and her young son inside. The idea of escorting her to an ATM for cash was discussed, but Amanda adamantly refused and instead dropped to the floor. making it clear she would not leave. Watson and Gordon then decided to leave the residence in the stolen car, leaving Taylor behind at the Blackburn house. Watson revealed that Taylor was armed with a .38 revolver. Watson and Gordon proceeded to visit 2 ATM locations. The first transaction was unsuccessful, but they successfully withdrew $400 in cash from the second ATM. Both admitted that upon their return to retrieve Taylor from the neighborhood, he confessed to taking Amanda's life. Watson further shared that Taylor admitted to attempting to take advantage of Amanda, which resulted in a fatal gunshot to the head when she resisted. This revelation left me in shock, as I only wanted quick cash and never intended harm to anyone in the homes we targeted, said Watson. Gordon added that in a subsequent conversation with a different group of people, Taylor claimed that Amanda had tried to attack him, leading to the fatal shot in the head. The unfolding details painted a disturbing picture of the events that occurred that day. In 2017, Watson pleaded guilty to robbery and burglary charges, resulting in a 29-year prison sentence. On the other hand, Gordon pleaded guilty in 2018 to charges of robbery resulting in serious bodily injury and burglary. At Gordon's sentencing hearing in September 2022, two more victims, Jacqueline Searsbrook and Allison Becker, who had both been victims of burglaries by Gordon, shared their stories. Surprisingly, it wasn't the stolen items during the 2015 burglaries that impacted these victims the most. They highlighted that it was the loss of their feeling of safety and the subsequent mental health struggles that have continued to affect their lives. Gordon was ultimately given a 30-year prison term. The road to securing Taylor's conviction was a difficult one. 2 attempts to prosecute Taylor ended in mistrials. The first was declared when a juror found out that Amanda was pregnant, a detail that the judge feared could sway the jury's opinions. Building a case against Taylor was a meticulous process, involving careful selection of witnesses to give testimony. There were also delays and changes in attorneys, partly due to the effects of the pandemic, which contributed to the prolonged progression of the case. Finally, in a bench trial in September 2022, Taylor was convicted of multiple charges, including murder, burglary resulting in serious bodily harm, theft, criminal confinement, auto theft, and carrying a handgun without a license. During the subsequent sentencing hearing, members of Amanda's family showed a level of forgiveness towards Taylor. He was sentenced to 86 years in prison in October 2022. Davy and Amanda's family were relieved by the verdict, with Davy expressing a sense of relief after a lengthy and challenging journey. On the morning of July 14, 1974, the peaceful farming community of Fairfield in southwestern Ohio was greeted by a radiant Sunday. However, this seemingly ordinary day took a tragic turn for 71-year-old Ruth Dunn, a beloved resident of the area. Inside her home's front door, Ruth was discovered lifeless on the floor, a garden axe cruelly embedded in her head. The question that haunted everyone was, who could have committed such a heartless crime? What could have motivated the choice of Ruth, a 71-year-old woman, as the victim? Fairfield Township, Ohio, is a serene and tightly knit community nestled in the heart of southwestern Ohio. Its modest population cherishes a peaceful way of life, and the tranquil environment it offers is truly captivating. The vast farmland that stretches across the township adds to its breathtaking beauty. Normally, the overall calmness of the area extends a warm and inviting welcome to both locals and visitors. However, this community was shaken to its core when Ruth Dunn was tragically murdered in 1974, leaving its residents in a state of shock. Ruth M. Dunn, born in 1902 and a native of Ohio, lived a simple life alongside her husband, Paul J. Dunn, in Fairfield Township. As the esteemed principal at Hayes Elementary School, she found fulfillment in her role within the community. Ruth's life was characterized by its lack of controversy and remained a relatively unknown tale, shared only among her closest associates in the tight-knit Fairfield community. In 1973, tragedy struck when her husband, Paul, passed away at the age of 74. At 70 years old, Ruth was left to navigate life alone. Following her husband's death, she took on the responsibility of managing their 18-acre property, which had several tenants. Little did she know that just 1 year after her husband's passing, at her advanced age, she would face a fate far more terrifying than she could have ever imagined. On the morning of July 14, 1974, a distress call led the police to a horrifying scene. 71-year-old Donch was discovered lifeless in her own home, just inside the front door. She was partially unclothed, with a garden axe embedded in her head. The lack of significant blood around her head suggested that she was killed before the axe was used. Despite a thorough investigation, no new clues emerged to help move the case forward. Ruth Dunn seemed to be an unfortunate victim of a senseless act of violence. The police struggled to find any connections or motives that could explain why she was targeted in such a brutal and unprovoked manner. Although the crime scene did not provide direct evidence, Detective Deaton made a crucial discovery in Dunn's house: a receipt containing information about the renters on her property. The search for the individuals listed on the receipt began. Among the renters, one name stood out to Detective Deaton: Donald Korn. Donald, a local resident, had been renting Dunn's guest house for over a year. Deaton wasted no time in locating Korn and engaging in a conversation with him. With no evidence pointing to Korn's involvement, the case remained unsolved and eventually went cold. 5 months later, in December 1974, an incident occurred roughly 130 miles southwest of Fredericksburg Township in Jeffersonville, Indiana, putting the police on high alert once again. This time, it involved the case of 54-year-old Dorothy Hendren. It was shortly after dinner, and Dorothy was at home, enjoying a moment of relaxation in her chair while watching TV. Little did she realize that this seemingly ordinary evening was about to take a terrifying turn. Out of nowhere, her head was forcefully pulled back, and a knife was pressed against her throat. Despite her pleas for mercy, the intruder callously ignored her pleas and subjected her to a traumatic violation. In a critical moment, Dorothy made the decision to play dead, hoping to protect her life from the heartless intruder. She lay motionless as the intruder, believing her to be lifeless, proceeded to search the house for valuable items before eventually leaving. Summoning all her strength, Dorothy discreetly reached for the telephone and dialed 911. By the time the police arrived, she had already been rushed to the hospital for medical attention. The forensic department arrived at the scene and collected any available evidence, including scattered hair and blood samples found on the floor and chair. Detective Ron Kemp of the Jeffersonville Police Department now faced an anxious wait, hoping for Dorothy's recovery. Fortunately, Dorothy Hendren survived the horrifying ordeal. She provided a detailed description of the intruder and recounted the harrowing events of that night. Despite her cooperation, the police department had no leads to match the description given by Dorothy, leaving the case at a standstill. However, the Jeffersonville police remained determined to uncover any new evidence that could lead them to the ruthless intruder. Their perseverance paid off on January 27, 1975, when a breakthrough finally occurred. The police department received a call from Kathy Allen, Dorothy's neighbor, who had valuable information to share regarding the night of the attack. Remarkably, Kathy recognized the person she had seen on that fateful night. He was the individual who had taken Kathy on his lifeboat approximately a month before the incident and assaulted her. Kathy had kept this information to herself until her growing concern compelled her to disclose the identity of the attacker who had targeted her and almost claimed Dorothy's life. It turned out to be none other than Donald Korn. Equipped with this crucial information provided by Kathy Allen, the police promptly took action and apprehended Donald Korn, placing him in a jail cell in Indiana. A search warrant was immediately issued, and the authorities meticulously combed through Korn's houseboat, ultimately uncovering the vital evidence required to build their case. They discovered a pair of shoes that perfectly matched a bloody footprint found at Dorothy's residence. Furthermore, Dorothy's purse, which had been discarded in a nearby river, was recovered alongside Korn's boat. Detective Ron Kemp arranged for Korn to be brought to his office for an interview. With a coffee mug and some food on the table, Kemp initiated the conversation. However, as the interview progressed, Kemp's sharp eye and memory triggered a recollection of an incident from November 1974, the Ruth Dunn case. Without hesitation, he redirected the interrogation to Ohio detectives, recognizing the potential connection between the two cases. Armed with Korn's confession, Detective Kemp achieved the closure he sought. The Ohio Police Department, which had been grappling with the unsolved Ruth Dunn case, finally obtained some resolution. The confession seemed to have cracked the case wide open. Nevertheless, despite this apparent progress, challenges and complications loomed ahead. Korn filed appeals based on both confessions, claiming that he had requested an attorney during the interrogation with Kemp, but had been denied one. On the other hand, Kemp refuted that any such request was ever made, leading to a contentious impasse in the argument. In Ohio, despite a seemingly clear confession, legal complexities and regulations hindered the authorities in Butler County. The trial dragged on for 3 years, resulting in a disappointing outcome for both the Ohio Police Department and the Butler County Prosecutor's Office in 1979. Donald Korn's confession was ruled inadmissible, dealing a significant blow to their case. Although Korn received a minimum of 20 years imprisonment in Indiana, he managed to escape justice in Ohio, evading the consequences for his crimes. This left the Fredericksburg Police Department and the people of Ohio in a nightmare, knowing that a killer was still at large. Fast forward to the year 2000, Ohio had progressed, but the unresolved case of Dunn's murder continued to haunt the police department. Detective Frank Smith, unwavering in his determination, stumbled upon a lead while reviewing files related to the case: Donald Korn's sister, Louise Amberby. Despite 21 years passing, Detective Smith remained dedicated and pursued this new lead. Louise, who had never contacted the police before, finally broke her silence when Detective Smith approached her. She shared crucial details about her brother's confessions during their visit to him in jail, shedding new light on the case. Detective Smith was able to crack the case once and for all thanks to Louise's crucial statement. With Korn's upcoming parole date, Detective Smith swiftly obtained a grand jury indictment for the 1974 murder of Ruth Dunn and ready for the trial. The verdict was delivered on June 17, 2000, resulting in Korn being convicted of aggravated murder. Nevertheless, Ohio law prevented the death penalty from being applied to the case. As a result, Korn was sentenced to life imprisonment without the chance of parole for 30 years. The quaint town of Tustin, California, bore witness to the hopeful beginnings of a new family with 20-year-old Diana Green and her 21-year-old husband, Kevin Green. Their excitement for the impending arrival of their first child filled their days with joyful anticipation. Tragically, their dreams were soon dashed by a devastating event. On September 30th, 1979, Diana, heavily pregnant at 9 months, suffered severe injuries in their apartment. A forceful blow to her forehead rendered her unable to speak or communicate. Fearing for both her life and that of her unborn child, she was swiftly taken to the hospital. Despite efforts, medical professionals could not detect any signs of life in the baby, declaring it stillborn. The question remained, who could be behind this cruel act? Was it fueled by hatred or perhaps a deeper motive? Tustin, California, is a quaint town with a storied past, renowned for its lively orange groves that once dominated the area, earning it the moniker the City of Trees. As time passed, Tustin evolved into a thriving community that retains its small-town charm while providing residents with a comfortable and convenient lifestyle. Its close proximity to major attractions in Southern California and its warm, family-oriented environment make Tustin an appealing destination for both living and visiting. Additionally, Tustin is recognized as one of the 25 safest places in the United States for families, further enhancing its already charming reputation. Unfortunately, the safety and security that Tustin is known for did not extend to the Green family, whose promising life was tragically shattered beyond repair. On the final Saturday of September 1979, Diana and Kevin were at home, enjoying the movie together. Kevin encountered a long line of cars at the drive-thru, waiting patiently for an additional 30 minutes. Upon finally receiving their food from the hamburger stand, Kevin returned home only to find evidence of a break-in. Discovering his wife with a head injury that seemed to be from a gunshot, Kevin acted swiftly, immediately dialing 911 for urgent assistance. Diana was swiftly taken to the hospital, where a medical examination revealed that her wound was not from a gunshot, but from blunt force trauma. The pregnant mother, in her 9th month, fought for her life for 8 grueling hours in the emergency room. Despite her valiant efforts, she tragically succumbed to her injuries. With the baby nearly at full term, doctors performed an emergency cesarean section. Despite their best efforts, the devastating outcome was that the baby was stillborn and Diana slipped into a coma. During his wife's difficult hospitalization, Kevin remained steadfast by her side, praying for her recovery. Meanwhile, the Tustin Police Department initiated an investigation to uncover the truth behind the incident. Their primary focus was on meticulously examining Kevin's statements. Detective Steve Foster reached out to the Greens' neighbors to inquire about any unusual occurrences on the night of the attack or if they had witnessed any suspicious behavior. Although no immediate leads pointed to a suspect, a crucial piece of information emerged. The neighbors reported hearing an argument between the couple that night. This prompted the police department to scrutinize Kevin's alibi more closely. They confirmed his claim of visiting a hamburger stand, but what puzzled them was that there was a stand within walking distance from the Greens' home. Instead, Kevin had chosen to drive to a location more than 15 minutes away, raising suspicions and prompting further investigation. According to Kevin, he had seen a black man near a black van when he left on the day of the incident, and upon his return, he encountered the same man again. However, Detective Foster had different plans. As the investigation progressed, the forensic department conducted tests on Diana's body, collecting a sample of male bodily fluid and performing blood tests. In the absence of DNA testing, they focused on identifying the blood type, hoping it would provide a breakthrough in the case. The results revealed that the blood type was O negative, a rare type in the United States, and intriguingly, it matched Kevin's blood type. While it was not surprising to find Kevin's bodily fluid in Diana's body due to their marital status, the police understood the significance of any evidence implicating Kevin in a situation like this. 2 months later, in December 1979, Diana emerged from her coma and regained her ability to speak. She immediately began communicating with her parents, prompting the arrival of police officers eager to hear her account. Their primary concern was whether Kevin was the perpetrator. Fortunately, they received the answers they had been desperately seeking. Diana was able to clearly communicate that Kevin was responsible for her ordeal. However, when confronted with his wife's statement, Kevin stubbornly clung to his original claims of innocence. Deep down, he knew there was no escape. He was fully aware that anything he said would only further incriminate him. His previous statements to the police were nothing more than a web of lies. With Diana's statement as their strongest evidence, Kevin was arrested and brought to trial in October 1980 to face the charges against him. Diana, the sole witness in the case, remained resolute in her accusation against her husband. Despite Kevin's continued denial of any involvement, he believed that Diana's severe head trauma had affected her recollection of the events that transpired that night. The prosecution sought the expertise of Dr. Martin Brenner, a psychiatrist, to establish Diana Green's credibility as a witness. However, the defense encountered a setback when their request for an independent psychiatric evaluation of Diana's mental state was denied. Despite her struggles, including difficulty spelling her own last name while under oath, Diana Green took the stand and served as the sole witness against Kevin Green. The trial lasted for a week, and just 2 days after its conclusion, on November 7, 1980, the jury delivered their verdict. Kevin received a 15-year sentence at San Quentin State Prison after being convicted of second-degree murder, attempted murder, and assault with a deadly weapon. With the case officially closed, it seemed that justice had been served and the city of Tustin could finally find some relief. However, the tranquility was short-lived as a series of similar assaults continued to haunt the area. These incidents followed a consistent pattern of break-ins followed by attacks on women, mirroring the horrifying experience of Diana Green. These crimes had been ongoing for months prior to Diana's attack and persisted even after her ordeal, yet they remained unsolved. After 15 years had passed, doubts began to emerge within the police force regarding Kevin's guilt. The unresolved cases and the recurring pattern of assaults raised suspicions. In January of 1996, the Orange County Forensics Lab in Santa Ana conducted tests on evidence collected from a series of cold cases spanning 17 years. These cases shared a strikingly similar modus operandi and were attributed to a presumed single perpetrator known as the bedroom basher. The test yielded a breakthrough when a blood sample provided by an assailant named Gerald Parker matched the evidence. This discovery marked a significant turning point in the previously unsolved cases, made possible by the unwavering dedication and hard work of Detective Tom Tarpley, a recent addition to the Tustin Police Department. Following this breakthrough, the tests were expanded to 3 other cases believed to be the work of the bedroom basher. Once again, the results confirmed the growing suspicion that they were dealing with a serial killer, Gerald Parker. Detective Tom Tarpley, driven by a determination to uncover the truth, delved into the details of Diana's case. His goal was to determine whether Kevin was the right person behind bars or if the true culprit was indeed Gerald Parker. In the course of his investigation into Parker's background, he uncovered that Parker was a former Marine with a history of run-ins with the law, including a previous incident involving the abduction and assault of a 13-year-old girl. It was time for a meeting with Parker to finally obtain the necessary answers to bring closure to the situation. The truth emerged. Kevin Green was innocent. Subsequently, on June 17, 1996, Tom Tarpley met with Kevin, who had been incarcerated for 16 years for a crime he did not commit. Kevin Green was eventually exonerated and walked out of prison a free man. Despite Kevin's release, Diana remained firm in her belief that he was the one who attacked her, although she acknowledged that Parker might have played a role in some way. Kevin admitted to past arguments and altercations with Diana, but insisted that he was not involved in the incident that night. Nevertheless, Kevin was acquitted of all charges, while Parker was sentenced to death. Additionally, in October 1999, Governor Gray Davis awarded Kevin $620,000 in compensation for the unjust years he spent in prison.